Hi there. This is Wednesday, October 6th, 2021. Um, Prayers for the family members of the kids that were shot at the school in or near Arlington, Texas this morning. Um, Sounds like another false flag. So often the seems like our government agencies tend to be involved in a lot of those things. They say it was two kids that were having a fight, and one pulled out a gun, and four are injured. Um, One not badly, and so that one has already been released from the hospital, thank God. Um, but the kid with the gun apparently had got away and tore off in his truck. So now they're on a manhunt for him. He's 18 years old, black kid. Not that that necessarily has anything to do with anything. I don't know about, the mix of anybody else, but the one they're looking for is this time. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily African American. Let me just say he was dark skinned. Um, I expected we would see a lot more of this. And that really, I didn't mention it yesterday, but that really was the reason I said we all should find a way to go and pray a hedge of protection around any schools that are near us. Now, I have done it by praying as I drove along two sides of my school. I can't get to the third and fourth side without driving onto school property, although I can do it by praying through the neighborhood, which I have done on one side, but not the fourth side. So I still need to take responsibility myself for getting this done here. I live near three schools. Two are elementary, one's a middle school, which is 4 through 6. Here, elementary is K through 3, middle school is 4 through 7, and then they have a junior high that I have also prayed. I haven't circled it because of the way it's located, but I have driven. They actually have a street that goes through the middle of the junior high campus with a bridge, pedestrian bridge over the top of the street to connect the two sides of the school. And I have prayed along a couple sides of the high school, but I feel responsible for doing more of that. I have not finished my task in that regard, and I am determined that I will. I don't leave the house very often. Another miracle happened today for me. I'm just kind of flabbergasted at how long I've waited to see God really doing things in my life, even little things. Remember, I said last Wednesday that Tuesday night I'd gone to bed praying. I had found this Bible study, and would the Lord have in my group that they assigned me to someone who's new to the area and wanted a friend. And I've got two people who they're new and are looking for friendship and have reached out to me, and I'm very thrilled about that. One of them picked me up this morning, and on the way back, I found out that two of her family members, not immediate, but anyhow, two relatives, just her kids' relatives, actually, had died, and they had gotten sick. They died in the hospital. I asked if they had gotten, what, and she didn't know. So we don't know whether it's just the illness or what. But folks, by the time I got home, she dropped me off. I realized not only, how God says that He will do forgot to turn the sun, over and above all that we ask or can imagine. Well, not only did God provide a friend, but He has provided a friend who is awake and alert and aware. And when I talked about my having been on the drug that I was put on and the effects that I felt, she thinks that that's what took out one of the relatives, a young person, um, because 25% are dying within 14 days of getting that drug they gave me. So we are going to see more and more and more death coming in the coming months, because in the animal testing that was done, 100% of the animals died, and they have extrapolated. Now, who was the one that did this? I've listened to so many different doctors and people from Pfizer and whistleblowers from Pfizer and so on, that I can't remember who it was that said it, but it was extrapolated that if mice died in 2 weeks, then humans would die in 2 years. So, the further into this we go, I also learned that the first kills 50% of your immunity, the second kills another 25%, and the booster will take the rest of your immunity out completely. And that's why anybody who's done that will need another one every 6 months, because you will have no immunity. So you go into autoimmune disease, and they're saying the extra ones will, if they correctly put in the ingredients to supposedly counteract, what you get exposed to, but they have created a permanent need for their billion-dollar industry. On that note, I listened to a radio broadcast last night that was a replay, and I don't know, it was some kind of video. It might not have been radio, it was some kind of video broadcast, but I was watching Brad Barton. I don't know if you know of him. He's on Telegram, and he's on either Rumble or BitChute, or maybe both, but he told about a friend of his in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and you can find this person's name is Patrick D. Hampton. He's on Facebook, Patrick D. Hampton. But he was talking about what the hospital and what hospice did with his brother. And they were able to get his brother out of the hospital because of what they were trying to do there. And coming home, hospice worker had turned off his oxygen machine. The next day they came in and said they had orders to turn the volume of oxygen down. So he went from 90%, which is not perfect, but it's good, down to 69%, 70%, which puts you right at death's door. I mean, I remember when Larry, with all the oxygen he was on for years, would struggle with that. And the fact that he was no longer needing oxygen in the last couple months of his life, I thought I don't know when he stopped using it. As far as I know, he was still on oxygen in December of 2019 before he went in the hospital in January of 2020. So I don't know. Anyhow, I'd suggest, if you're on Facebook, looking up Patrick D. Hampton to see the story. The phone number for the hospital is given. But frankly, the discussion I had with this new friend of mine from my Bible study, we were talking about, because of the bonuses when somebody expires, they're you just got to keep your family out of the hospital if there's any way you possibly can. And we really have to be more proactive about our health. That means the supplements you take. That means the exercise you do. That means the food you put in your mouth to be healthy. We've got to be more careful. And it is getting harder and harder, even with buying organic food, to know that your food has not been tainted because of where it's coming from and so on. So, I mean, just even with what they spray from the air, life is more and more at risk no matter what you do. But that is why we pray and ask God to bless our food before we put something in our mouth. We are asking God to bless us. We're asking daily for God's protection. We need to be praying for our children that are in these schools. The lack of the oxygen deprivation with what they have to wear is going to affect this functioning in here. And of course, they're trying very hard now to promote this with the kids. So another thing we need to be aware of in praying for the children, and I realized after I was on the show yesterday that not only praying for the schools and praying around the schools, but anytime you see a crosswalk, pray for protection of the kids crossing the street. And the fact that they are out, whether they're alone or in a group, that they don't get snatched and so on, because October is the highest, I don't know the right word, the highest incidence of satanic and occult rituals. And don't think that human sacrifice doesn't go on, because it does. And they are now looking for the kids they're going to capture. And I understand there was a woman, was it in Idaho, that I heard yesterday, that had been found. She'd been missing for a couple of weeks, and she was found in a cage. They have arrested the guy. There were two men who had abducted her, and fortunately found alive. But it just made me wonder what their intents were after, down the road a couple of weeks from now. The whistleblower that we saw yesterday in Congress that talked at 60 Minutes, I've heard multiple people. Yeah. I was surprised. I just was listening to a press conference with my governor, and I was shocked at what was not said, and very pleased, which is one reason I decided to come here, because it is state law not to mandate that people, not to mandate employers, to mandate that employers have. I mean, it's not that employers won't mandate, but it's up to the employer himself or the company to decide what they're going to do. The state is staying out of it so far. Anyhow, two things have happened with this, with Facebook yesterday. One was Timothy Dixon and Robin Bullock were doing some event. I watched a little bit of it over the weekend, didn't quite understand what was happening, but watched, a few minutes of something with them over the weekend. And apparently Robin Bullock either gave a prophecy or made some kind of declaration, and whatever he had prayed, and I have the video to watch, but I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. Whatever he prayed about was directly answered with the shutdown of Facebook within minutes or hours of when he made his declaration. So there were people this morning who were talking about the significance of that. But what has been said is that she was there in Congress as a, quote, whistleblower. But the fact that she was on Liberal 60 Minutes made people suspect that this wasn't true whistleblowing. And they've realized that what she was actually doing was begging Congress to get involved in helping to legitimize the censorship of conservative voices. So, typical that they talk about the opposite of what's really the truth. I'm hearing Biden talk about federal agencies helping with policing. Well, the whole reason apparently for defunding the police is to get the state and local, the local sheriff is the most important government official in our country. The local sheriffs at the local level, they have more power over things that go on in their city and county than anybody else. And so he wants to take out the local police and replace them with people at the federal level. Well, we know how honest the FBI is. Not. And we know that so many who work at the federal level are involved in the occult and satanic worship and so on. Now, something that Cloward Piven had said 100 years ago, last century anyway, early. He said, if we increase welfare, if a government will increase welfare to the point that the payouts overwhelm the government's budget, that will force socialism into existence. So that is another piece of what's going on with the border, and the refugees coming in, and the payments that are going to them, and so on. That's what's being set up. We, like Larry said 4 years ago, this is how close we are, that space between your thumb and finger, how close we are to socialism. I think it's even, and of course it's way closer than that at this point. I'm thankful that Lieutenant Schuler was set free last night. I was a little disappointed to hear that he is, an anti-Trumper, but he has the right to his opinion. But I'm thankful that, his free speech has been, he was given a gag order, so he's not allowed to talk about anything. But they did recognize at least that, it was wrong to lock him up, or at least pressure's been put on to free him. I heard today that dozens of informants with the CIA have been killed, and somebody's leaking the information to whoever is doing the killing, and this is not a good situation. And I'm not sure what to say about this. I'm kind of not surprised given the situation we're in right now, but it makes me sad. It really makes me sad, because there's so much that is so wrong about this, because we need people to inform us on our enemies. And I heard today that China has the intent of controlling the whole Pacific Rim, and has told the U.S. to get out of Japan, to get out of South Korea, that they plan to control it all, and of course to get out of the Philippines. I didn't hear that, but that would be included, surely. And we see in Afghanistan that Sharia law has been set back in place, and the women are being oppressed. They can't leave their home without an escort. After their 20 years of tasting freedom, this has to be very young, because so many of the women who, when we first went in 20 years ago, who were of an age to start enjoying freedom in the last 10 years, if they're coming into an adulthood as a free person, even involved, they had women in government who have now been expelled from government. So, they think of women as an animal. I saw a chart. I'm jumping from topic to topic. I saw a chart of the number of nukes our country has had. And this chart, now, I'm not sure which way to draw this so you don't see it backwards, because I think things have turned around. But it showed it going up, and it didn't catch years, but it showed it going really high, and then it started dropping off and dropping off and dropping, and now we're just almost at the bottom of the whatever this graph was. And it was like, you've got to be kidding me. We're just sitting ducks. And I also read today that funding has been approved for the creation of more and deadlier viruses. One of the things that I was discussing with my new friend this morning on the way home from Bible study was the whole idea of the spirit of fear. And she used to live in a village for senior citizens, and moved here from there. And she said the people were so fearful last year. They were so afraid of dying. and it must have been a senior living area. I didn't realize this place was a senior living community, but I didn't seriously look there. I had heard somebody recommend the area, and I just didn't want to. Anyhow, I didn't. She said people were so afraid, and so we had a discussion. Like I have said here, we're to be afraid of we're to have the fear of the Lord only, because we're told to be strong and courageous. No fear. Don't fear. 365 times. Don't fear. Don't be afraid. So I've seen pictures of people with the thermometer gun that they can take your temperature by holding it up. It looks like a gun. It's not a gun, but it's, they have a trigger that they pull to get to make the temperature register. Because of probably a radio frequency, some kind of electromagnetic frequency or something that helps them read the temperature. When they're pointing it here, it is affecting through the radiation or EMF or what it is. Yes, Christian, that's where I heard it. Anyhow, when you point it here, it goes, the radio waves or radiation, whatever it is, can go straight into the pineal gland, which is smack in the middle of your brain. And that's a lot to do with the emotional center. And that is where they think the God particle in our brain is. So not only does what they stick up your nose to test you and what gets up into your brain goes to that area of your brain, as well as other areas of the brain. But, they don't want us loving God, and they're doing everything they can to block it. It just is so much a part of the coming beast kingdom, Okay, that was the end of the news. It was a lot again. I was surprised I got that much news in the last half hour. Good grief. So we were talking about the Antichrist yesterday. So I thought I'd read Daniel 7:25. Wait a minute. Daniel comes after Ezekiel, not before. Hang on a second. I didn't get my Bible. I'm marked up with paper to find everything. So you have to give me a sec. Daniel 7:25 is talking about the Antichrist, and it says he will speak against the Most High. Well, Satan speaking against the Most High, that's nothing unexpected. And he will oppress the saints and try. The Chinese church in the 50s and 60s expected that they were going to be raptured out before persecution would come under Mao. And they were wrong. And we have to be very, very careful, expecting that we will be raptured before trouble and persecution happens. Jesus does not return until the number of martyrs that has been preordained is complete. And for us to think that we won't be part of it when the rest of the world has suffered so greatly, it's unrealistic to think that we get to scot-free to avoid it. I am praying over and over again, Lord, get us back into covenant with you, like that pastor prayed in 1607 on the beach in Virginia. We want to be back in covenant. We made a covenant with you. We want to be back in covenant with you. That's great, Christian. I love that too. We have to prepare our hearts so that we don't fall away when trouble comes. Now, at our age, we've had plenty of things that we've had to deal with, but I would say most of the time what we have had to deal with has not been because of Christ, because of the name of Christ. It's been life has happened, and life brings terrible things into our, we deal with illness and death and disabled kids, and there's lots of things mental illness, and lots of things that we can deal with that are very, very hard things. And we are suffering because of that. But very rarely are we suffering because of Jesus Christ. Like Artur Pawlowski, the Polish pastor from Alberta, Canada, as soon as he went back to Canada, he couldn't even greet his family before they arrested him and threw him in jail. Now he is out, but he's out on bond. Um, uh, what did I say yesterday that Wolf is doing? You guys need to make sure you're contacting your state rep because, hang on, I got to turn the page. Oh, they're trying to pass a bill in Pennsylvania to limit your family to 3 children and make it a law. Now, I'm sure that is under Chinese influence. I can just imagine. Anyhow, so this Antichrist is going to speak against the Most High and oppress the saints and try to change the set times and laws. We know that that Satan doesn't know God's timing of when Jesus returns. And so I certainly feel that the timing of that they're trying to rush. It seems like that to me. I mean, what do I know? But I'm guessing. But it's just from my observation. That's what it seems like. Changing laws, yeah, from laws that we have always had with our Constitution to suddenly change the law and control things, like Pennsylvania trying to control the number of children you have, like many of the states, especially blue states, trying to do mandates. The laws that are governing what hospitals are allowed to do, and that doctors don't have the freedom to prescribe something they know is healthy. Of course, we know this started back in the early 1900s with Rockefeller taking control of the medical schools so that they couldn't talk about herbs and natural remedies. They had to do big pharma because he was an oil man and he discovered that they could make drugs out of oil. Petroleum, not cooking oil, but petroleum. The saints will be handed over to him for a time, times, and half a time. The saints are going to be handed over to him. Now, that to me doesn't say there's a pre-trib rapture, or we wouldn't be here for those 3.5 years. So I think we're going to go through some trouble. Now, I personally don't think we're going through the full judgment of God, which happens in the second half of the tribulation. But I think we're going to be dealing with some really tough times before Satan demands worship in the temple in Jerusalem, which hasn't been built yet, but they will have the temple up. Hey, back, Ricky, welcome. They will have the temple built in 3 months because they have everything ready in a warehouse somewhere. All they have to do is just assemble it together. It's all pre done. At least that's my understanding. Now there's a couple verses in Revelation that go along with this. Sorry. The protein shake that I drink has a real hard time dissolving completely. So every once in a while I get this real dry something or other in my throat that didn't go down all the way. I'm so sorry about that. Revelation 11 verse 2. It talks about a certain area of the temple being given to the Gentiles, and they will trample on the holy city for 42 months. I'm not sure who they are, but I guess it's the Gentile worshipers. And why would the Gentile worshipers be at the temple? Well, we know there's going to be a lot of deception going on. We know that American Christians are very excited about the coming of the temple because we know that this is an indication of the end times. I'm sure that, you know, trampling, well, just walking and going there. But why? But why does that part end after 3.5 years? Is that because we're taken out of here? I don't know. Mr. Mustard, absolutely. The elites are satanic. They have their playbook. They know the Bible. They know about the prophecies, and they are trying to force them. This whole business of people disappearing, they're going to have a reason for that. They're going to have an excuse. I've been hearing some things recently about what some of the plans are, and I haven't heard specifically how they plan to do this, but what I have heard is that they have a storyline that is so deceptive that, don't forget, Matthew 24 says the love of most is going to grow cold because of deception. um, Revelation 13:5 talks about the beast, and April is so much more familiar with what is in Revelation than my understanding of how these pieces fit together. I have done multiple Bible studies on Daniel and Revelation, and it still goes over my head. There's a certain amount I get, and there's a certain amount that I just don't know how to piece together properly. We are absolutely in a world of deception. Look what the media is doing. It's nothing but lying propaganda. And Larry told us that if quoting from, I think it was Goebbels that told Hitler, if you tell a lie big enough, long enough, people will believe it. Well, going along with that is if you deceive the people well enough, even if you later tell them the truth, they won't believe it. Why? Because who wants to admit they were duped? People don't want to admit the wool was pulled over their eyes and they believed a lie. That's embarrassing. People are going to be ashamed to realize they believed the lie. They would rather continue believing the lie. That's more comfortable than doing the work to turn around. That's the problem with repentance. Nobody wants to admit that they are going the wrong direction and need to turn around. That's what repentance means. Repentance means to turn around and go the other direction. It means change. It's not enough to confess your sin. You have to change your behavior. Who wants to do that? Who wants to admit that? It's going to get harder and harder. Now we know that there is a lot going on. I think of Sean Foyt and the way he's reaching out as an evangelist to the young people. Having sessions on the beach and leading kids to Christ, presenting truth to them. They're so excited about seeing the truth that they're coming to Christ. Mario Murillo he's had 3 different tent meetings in California. Right now he's up in upstate, I don't know if it's upstate, maybe it's Western New York, Batavia, New York. I'm not sure where exactly that is. And they're seeing signs and wonders and miracles. People are getting healed, and they are so excited at seeing the power of the resurrection. Don't forget that verse says that I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of suffering with the saints. There's both of that. And we want the power of the resurrection without being willing to suffer with others. Christian Freedom International's theme verse is that you suffer alongside those that are bound in chains as if you were bound with them. You identify with them. It's no fun to be talking about persecution, but we know it's coming. We have to be prepared for it mentally and spiritually. And like I said, I've known since I was a teenager that God had called me to live into the end times, because it says that when Israel becomes a nation again, which has never ever happened to any nation that was completely destroyed, people scattered around the world, taken over by others, and this is the first time that a nation has come back. Their people have come back to establish their nation. And God said, when this happens, this generation shall not pass until all be fulfilled. But then there's a question, how long is the generation? 20 years, 40 years, 70 years, 120 years? I've heard all of those describe one generation. So it'd be 120 years if you were in Noah's day, So 1948 to now, we're quite a ways into this. We're quite a ways into this. So it's not the 20 or 40 years, because that's long gone. So is it 70 or 120? I don't know. Can God stop the clock again? Very possibly. Are we marching forward into this? Of course we are, because this is God's time, but he's outside of time. And look what happened. Like I shared, was it Monday that we talked about Jonah? I think it was Monday we talked about Jonah. God, they repented. They changed their ways. The king, the leader, repented and told the people they had to fast and beseech God so that they would not be destroyed. And it was 40 years before Nineveh was destroyed. And we know what Nineveh and Babylon look like now in Iraq. They're wastelands. But I know Saddam was trying to bring Babylon back. Babylon, I think, was on the Euphrates Tigris. Nineveh was quite a ways northwest on the Tigris. Anyhow, Revelation 13:5 talks about the hang on, I need a big letter edition nowadays. Ugh. So the beast was given a mouth to utter proud words, blasphemies, and exercise authority for 42 months. He opened his mouth to blaspheme God and slander God's name and slander the dwelling place and all who live in it, who live in heaven. He was given power to make war against the saints and to conquer them. Given authority over every tribe, people, nation, language, and nation. All inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast if their name is not written in the book of life. And it says, if anyone is to go into captivity will go. If anyone's to be killed by the sword, with the sword he will be killed. Now listen to this verse. This is verse 10. This calls for patience, patient endurance. It's not just patience, but endurance, long suffering, hanging on, don't give up. And faithfulness, being faithful to the Lord, being faithful because you know God's word and you cling to his promises. You're hanging on. This calls for patience, endurance, and faithfulness on the part of the saints, which indicates to me that we're still here. So people who are preaching now, look, I know there are some really, really good preachers who have every reason to think that there is a rapture before the tribulation. But at this point, there are saints here who are going to have to endure. Now, how did they become saints? When did they become saints? How long has this gone on? Remember, when I was asking the Lord about the love of most growing cold, I was reading it, and it was 2015, I think. I had a couple places in my house where I really felt like I was under something where there was communication with the Lord like I had never experienced in my life before. This was in my last house. I did not find it in the rental I just left. I have not found it here yet, although I've got a place where I'm hoping to find it. I know where I'm going to find it is when I am still before the Lord and can get back into a place of being really, really quiet with the Lord. But we as for pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, Jesus said, blessed are those who endure to the end. The end of what? He didn't say. Look, I don't want to argue with people who think we're going to be taken out of here, but the fact that the Chinese Christian church thought that they would not have to suffer because they'd be taken out first, and look what happened. I'm not saying that we will not be taken out beforehand. That would be lovely. But if we are not prepared to go through trouble, we won't be able to handle it when it comes. So I'm not denying a pre-trib rapture. I will never do that because there are too many good preachers and pastors and Jan Markell and Perry Stone and people like that who believe in it. I want to. But like I told you, since I was a child, my philosophy of life has always been hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And like I said yesterday, I was so busy preparing for the worst that I had a negative outlook on life. And I am back living now in that state of hope and joy in the Lord and thanking God for everything. But if we do not think that we will have to suffer at all, and we do, we will be caught by surprise, and you won't have the strength to hang on with faithfulness to the Lord. Times are going to get tough when we can't go buy or sell or pay for our electric bill or make our mortgage payment because it'll be taken away because we're not willing to take whatever. That's my concern with this Nasara Jasara thing that we keep hearing about, because it's digital. It may be fine in the beginning, but how long will it be before, will we have to take some mark, something into our body one way or another in order to be able to participate in that? Probably not in the beginning, but how soon in order to keep it? People don't like to lose something. And when we're given something big and they're going to come take it away from us, I know what that feels like. Folks, I haven't told you this before. It doesn't matter. I hated the house that I lived in the 90s because it didn't feel comfortable to me. It was just too big. But I went from a 10,000 square foot house to living into something that is significantly less than 2,000 square feet. I know what it is. What Paul says. I mean, in Jamaica, we lived in a plywood, I told you this, a plywood house with a corrugated metal roof that was loud when it rained. You couldn't have a conversation. We slept on a straw mattress that poked us all night. Mom cooked on a wood fire outside, no water within 2 miles. Dad built a cistern and put gutters on the church to collect the water so we could not depend on kids to bring us 2 buckets of water twice a day. Outhouse, I've told you how Dad built used 2x4s to be able to put a wash tub above these 2x4s and rigged up some way to put a plug in it so that the water off the roof would drain into this tub, and then he could go in there, pull a chain, and the water would splash on him. He could take a shower. The rest of us bathed for years in half an inch of water. Mom would fill up a kettle of water, boil it, pour it into the tub, and we would add enough cold water to make it tolerable. And then one after another, we would take turns. So, yeah, the one world religion is coming. We're going to have one world money. We're going to have, one world in politics. The one thing I didn't realize is we are going to have a one world military. And I heard somebody, I think it was Perry Stone, said that yesterday. That was new to me. Christian, absolutely. Knowing scripture is so important for us to be strong in faith, because what promises can you cling to if you don't know what they are? What commands can you obey if you don't know what they are? Like I told you 30, 40 years ago, I didn't realize the importance of giving thanks and everything. It was so hard to do because life was so very hard. And I wish I had known that. I wish I had somebody who would speak truth to me back then and say, this is a command. No matter what you're going through, you have to do this because this is commanded. And look at how much change has happened in my life since I've learned to do this. It was hard to learn to do it, but I've had to do it. So we're over the length of time I like to do, and I've been a little passionate here, but we've got to know what God says so we can be faithful. I want God to tell me, well done, good and faithful servant, enter the joy of the Lord. I want God to say that to me. And I don't want to lose the ability to hear that because I fall away. Are you kidding me? And God, it says Jesus is coming back before that can happen, but most doesn't mean all. He has never said all, but I sure don't want to be part of the most that fall away. Yes, we are to write his word on the tablets of our heart. We also are to guard our hearts with all diligence. I think that's Proverbs 4:25. I think I should have looked it up again to put the reference in here. I'm not real good with references, although I'm getting better before I lose my memory. Anyhow, that's it for today. Well, we're going to talk a little more about this for the rest of this week, probably. A lot of this, Perry Stone gave a message that's on YouTube about the Antichrist spirit, and some of the scriptures is what he used. And I'm not copying what he said. I'm just reading some of the scriptures that he quoted from and read and were part of his message. And I went, those are really good scriptures for us to look at again. So those of you in Pennsylvania, please be in touch with your legislators for what they're trying to do. I mean, they're ahead of the game, being a blue state, in trying to bring in communism. Thank God for Mastriano and Chris Dush, who are two godly men trying to put on the brakes. I was hiccuping. Anyhow, if you call Chris Dush, D-U-S-H, just call him and say thank you for helping to toe the line for righteousness. He's a godly man. So, all right, that's it for today. Talk to you tomorrow as long as we have the internet. Now, I did hear something good, that when they're talking about the 10 days of darkness, that somebody called me today and said that what they had heard was that we wouldn't all experience 10 days, that it would be a day here, a day there, and it might be different things. Not a continent. Well, they've called it a continent. I know a lot of what's going on down there, Ricky. Text me or email me at my name, Mary Ellen. It's, of course, all one word, not two. Mary Ellen, the numeral 4, Larry at yahoo.com. Mary Ellen 4 Larry. So I think you guys may even be in the same county, Christian. I think Laura may be not too far away from you. So you guys might want to connect somehow. And you can certainly do it through me. I can put you guys in touch with one another. Yeah, Mary Ellen for Larry at yahoo.com. Let me know if you are willing to let me give your phone number to the other one, and I will certainly do that for you. All right, that's it. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.